Namaste and welcome back, beautiful souls, to this 13th episode of Decks I Recommend. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about witchy vibes and how I interpret this particular prompt. Now, it's quite funny, that today when I was preparing for this video, there was something that came across my Facebook Reels, and I do want to share it with you. As I listened to Shabby Creek Cottage and watched her prepare the limes and listened to the resonance of her voice, I deeply resonate with what she is saying. To be a witch is to be reverent of the earth herself, all of her beings, and find deep connection with the energy of all of the elements. This is something that has the power to shift energy, to affect our emotions, our physical health and well-being. And the deeper and the greater this connection is, the healthier and more magical and inspiring our lives can be. Nova writes that these are decks that have witchy aesthetics, moody vibes, magical symbolism. They support spell work, casting, or altar work. And I want to expand and just say that these are decks that also remind us how important these connections with the energy of green witchery can make a difference in all of our lives. The tarot decks that I'm sharing with you today are Vision Quest, Greenwood, Tarot of the Hidden Realm, Herbcrafters, and Margarete Petersen. These are all beloved decks. The Vision Quest Tarot was a deck that I first discovered when I was doing my shamanic training. It was on the altar, and I pulled cards from this deck quite regularly, and it became very close to my heart, sought it out, purchased my own copy right away. What this deck does for me is remind me of the importance of sacred connection with the elements and everything that surrounds us. The practice of creating medicine wheels, sand paintings, and so forth is an integral part of rituals that help to open portals and bring deep and life-changing connections. When I look at this daughter of fire and the way that she has been taught this practice, I just feel the importance of mentoring and sharing these traditions. And there's something also too about the artwork in how the landscape responds to the actions in the foreground. If I was to find an adjective for this deck, it's that it touches me. It touches me so deeply, and it reminds me to be kind and gentle with the earth. And yes, I read this as an oracle, and yes, it is thought inspired, but it is so much more than that. It gets me to look at the specific animals, if there's animals or birds in the deck, and what influence that might have on the cards themselves. I look at the effect of intergenerational messages that are arising in cards, and I'm just looking at the turtle here and the movement of the turtle, and reminded of a book that I had some time ago called Grandfather Turtle. It reminds me that each of the moon cycles are represented on the back of the turtle. It truly moves me, and sometimes to tears. I find these readings reflect such deep and personal messages. They can also inspire practices. So sometimes I find clients looking what they can do to better connect with spirit on their own. So sometimes I choose this deck to help acknowledge practices. And it may be as simple as an animal coming forth and in the reading, and then the client takes that energy and finds new connections with the owl, or all of a sudden starts noticing owls that have always been there, but they hadn't seen before. What a beautiful death card this is. Every being, every tradition, every part of the image here may have a message for us. And this is one deck that I look very, very closely at everything that's in the background and the foreground, and the connection of the humans to the animals and the land, and the message, the way that the cards are answering the inquiry and the message that is coming through. It's almost as if I can hear the drum beating when I read with this particular deck. Witchy vibes to me inspire reverent connection with the earth, the rituals, and any and all practices that you have learned to deepen your connection with that. This might be one of the most beautiful Two of Pentacles cards I have in my library. The richness of the fruit, the changing of seasons. We have a solar eclipse here. It's a remarkable card. And the cards that are hard-hitting are done so very well and get us to look at difficult cards like the Five of Pentacles from an earth-centric perspective. This card reminds me of the first time I was in Bali in the early 80s, and I remember watching women come up a very steep hill from the river with their containers of water on their heads, and it just kind of took my breath away. So yeah, Vision Quest is one that I find invokes a rhythm and a beat that feels so deeply connected to Mother Earth, and a variety of practices and rituals that help deepen our connection to her and all of her beings. In previous episodes in this series, I was quite careful to choose 2 mass market and 2 self-published decks, but I'm breaking the pattern here in this series. This is another mass market deck. This is Tarot of the Hidden Realm with artwork by Julia Jeffrey. And this is another deck that touches my heart so deeply. The tenderness, the sincerity, the intention, the power of intention in these cards is truly something. Each of these beings is deeply connected to the earth, and you can feel that these are sacred practices. Only the apples that we need for what we are using at this time are harvested. We only take what we are going to use at this time. The Green Man and the Goddess is one of my favorite websites in referencing practices and rituals for the Sabbats. This card just reminded me of that. If you don't know that website, it's wonderful. Let's look at these 2 cards. So this is Shadow Dance and the Lovers. And through this, and I keep using this word, reverent connection with the earth, we discover and find ways to be, to learn our lessons, to grow. The children in this deck, and this is a wonderful deck as well too, that shows us all ages of beings, every stage of life, elders, children, fortune fairy. There's a lot to work with in this deck. You can work with here the spreading, right? The spreading of the seed. All stages of the dandelion, all parts of the dandelion can be used in ways for healing. And I think another thing with all of the decks I'm sharing with you today, there is this quality of healing the body, mind, body, spirit. And what I love about the children in these decks is how you can just tell they have been mentored in an incredibly powerful way. I love this Hierophant card. And then we have a reversal of a traditionally masculine card with a crone. Here's another child card that is just inspiring. Magic, awe, wonder, the beauty and wonder, the sacredness of life. Almost here like we're looking at the son of the priestess, both having deep connection with the beings reflected in the night. This child knows the potential of the acorn. And this is so clever. I really like these cards, the X and the double X. And yes, this is a Fae deck, but it's also very much a witchy deck. It's one that teaches us about how important it is to know these practices and to use these practices for in our daily life, for our wellness, for our family sustainability. I have bought this deck many times and shared it with lots of people who are learning the tarot. I don't know one that didn't just open it and gaze deeply at the pictures and know that there was something really special vibrating off this deck. In this deck, we are aware of relationship in every direction. So yes, to get in the mood for connection and practice, this is an all-powerful deck. Tarot of the Hidden Realm with artwork by Julia Jeffrey. I've also tried in this series to not show you a deck more than once, and I included Herbcrafter Tarot in the ancestral category. However, I cannot not also include it here. This is a deck that always awakens new practices in me, new ways to connect with plants and herbs, new ways to build relationship with the earth around me. It takes me back to practices that I am familiar with, herbs and spices that I have previously worked with, foraged, braided. It reminds me to be a sacred keeper of this earth and how important reciprocity is. And I suppose the Gaian Tarot could also fit into this category, but there is something emphatically witchy about the Herbcrafter Tarot. These practices are old, and what this deck also does is emphasize that importance of passing down traditions. And the way that the court cards are organized, it helps to understand that the youth, the youngest generations, play with this energy and they learn to develop it in very basic early stages of practice. And this is built and developed through the Adelitas, the Madres, and then we see the amazing curanderas. Here's another one, another page. It's so important to teach these practices and teach these ways of being to our children, whether they are little girls or little boys. I recently saw a canning video, and it was a family who, a Mennonite family, they have left the horse and buggy enclave, but are still very much connected to the earth and farming and gardening. And they had a massive farm table in their backyard, and she was canning with all of her young children. And they were slicing and dicing with big chef knives, and all very much a part of the process. And I think that is a really important part of this whole witchy vibe thing, is that these are traditions to be shared with your children, your grandchildren, your clients, all those around you. They're not something to be ashamed of or hidden away. They're not weird or harmful. They are truly magical and very simple and easy to incorporate in our lives. So this one I definitely recommend in many capacities. That will help build connection with community as well too. And I think it's a great deck for learning how to build these practices and finding an herb or two, a flower or two to start with. The Herbcrafter Tarot with art by Joanna Colbert and an amazing guidebook by her collaborator, Letitia Guthrie. The Greenwood Tarot is a treasure of a deck. When I look at the colors and the artwork in this deck, it's almost as if we're in a mist of magic. And this is a deck that is being reprinted. Mark Ryan has made some amazing videos on the Kickstarter campaign. The artwork is by Jessica Potter. And the colors, I believe, have been touched up, but there have been no other changes to the deck. And again, this is a deck that shares with us the importance of this connection, mentoring, intention, focus, connection with the earth and her elements. And in this deck, it's as if you see the light, all the particles of energy that surround the beings in the cards. This is a wonderful deck for opening up pathways. And if you work with the Sabbats, it is also like the Wildwood Tarot connected to the Sabbats. Slightly different arrangement, but it does do that. I have been sharing this deck in my Saturday chats over the past few months, along with the Margarete Petersen Tarot and the Mythologia Phoenica Tarot that inspired this chat. Actually, it came through my Arthurian series. I wanted to look at the relationship among the elements in these earth-centric decks. And this is very much a deck that teaches us about the relationship of elements and how that is part of our transformation and growth. The nuances, the subtle changes in these cards compared to ones that you may be more familiar with bring in deeper and more connected meanings, and they can really help to ground you and land you in a potent understanding of what the cards represent. And this one feels very much like the Vision Quest Tarot as well too. We look at these relationships as above, so below, as within, so without, the changing of the light, the seasons, the lunar cycle, our energy, looking at ourselves as energy beings capable of working with energy, seeing the light around us between our hands, and beginning to learn how to move that energy and work with that energy in our favor, helping to heal ourselves and those around us. And I can see the Herbcrafter Tarot in this deck as well. I'm really excited to get my new copy, and of course I will do a side-by-side of this one and the new version. I don't believe there are any changes to the guidebook either. When I work with these decks that I'm sharing with you here today, I can feel, I mentioned the drum before, but I can also feel my heart. It's like these decks awaken something within me, and like I said before, remind me how important drumming and focus and all of the practices that I have learned over the years, how important they all are. One of the practices that I've always found completes something is when I'm harvesting from my own garden, to be really mindful of leaving something for the birds and the animals as well. This idea of sharing is one that comes in at so many different levels with these decks. Yeah. So this is the Greenwood Tarot, inspired by Mark Ryan and amazing artwork by Jessica Potter. And because I did show you the Herbcrafter before, I decided to include 5 decks in this particular episode. And this is one of several copies of the Margarete Petersen that I have. This was the English version that came out, I believe it was a 25th anniversary edition. And much like the other decks that I have shared with you, this is one that inspires relationship among everything that surrounds us. This is a deck of heart. And if you don't know this deck, the writing in the guidebook, it's probably one of the most potent little white books you will ever have. The art builds and deepens understanding among the elements, the movement of energy, the relationships among and between the humans that trespass on this earth. It has you looking deep within the paintings, and so reflecting deep within yourself and your soul. This deck vibrates at somehow simultaneously a slow frequency, low frequency, as well as a very high spiritual frequency. It's like I can put this deck at the root chakra and the crown chakra simultaneously. And every time I gaze into one of these paintings, there is a new layer that is revealed. I don't know how much you know about this deck, but many of these canvases were painted and then wiped and then repainted. So there are layers within layers, some intentional and some that were there from a previous idea. And in a way, I can feel connections to the Primordial Tarot, which is another deck that I shared with you. It's like the witchiness of this deck is so deep within, like it's a natural way of being to experience life in this way. Our vision is slightly out of focus all the time so that we can see this beautiful energy that surrounds us. And when we practice yoga, as an example, we are not thrown off our balancing foot, even though all of this energy surrounds us and is vibrating, because we are so grounded and so deeply connected to life and intention. This is a deck about intention of being. And here we have Tadasana, tree pose, or Vrikshasana, and Ardha Matsyendrasana, half Lord of the Fishes pose. This is a wild card. Oh. So this is a deck that I'm also sharing on Saturdays in the chat of elemental decks. The Mediatrix, in lieu of the Temperance card, teaches us to weave the elements. And I could have included any of the Sacred Bee decks in this series as well. And I'm just reminded of them because of this particular card. Understanding the nature of the golden ratio and how perfect nature is itself. Nature will heal itself. Nature is, change is, life is all a part of working with this deck. This is a deeply magical and energetic Margarete Petersen tarot. And here is the 14th arcanum from each of these decks. From the Herbcrafter tarot, the Camellia card, Tea Ceremony. The integration card from Vision Quest is truly beautiful. Love the spider web in the bottom left corner. This card also reminds me of one from the Wildwood Tarot. And just look how the birds appear to be flying off, the weaving, the mediatrix from the Margarete Petersen. Temperance from Tarot of the Hidden Realm. And Balance from the Greenwood Tarot. Thank you for being here today. These decks all have a very special place in my heart. I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments below. Take good care. Namaste.